the lighting is much better. Thank you, nature. And yeah, I've asked about getting blackout curtains. We live in an apartment complex, so we don't get a lot of free will on the decor. So the answer was a no. Anyway, the last Genshin video I did went surprisingly well, i.e. people actually watched it. So I decided to come back with another one. This time I'm going to explain your basic enemies, the common ones you're going to run into everywhere because, well, you're going to be running into them everywhere, so why not? And I just realized in the tags I forgot to list the slimes. Okay, well, yeah, these guys... Ice Storm could be also considered a basic enemy. Anyway, I'll actually go and encounter some of these after I go over them in the archive. I'm just using the archive to make sure I don't forget any of them. So, slimes are about as basic as you get, or at least the little ones are. Each type of slime just corresponds to its element. They're always affected by their element, which makes for easy elemental reactions. But that also means that just by touching you, they affect you with their element, which makes for easy elemental reactions against you. The large ones, for the most part, just have more health and each have an attack where they'll shoot a basic elemental attack at you. The pyro slimes will lob some fireballs at you. The hydro slimes, I don't remember the hydro slimes having a shooty attack. They also have a big jump attack. Will jump up, a target reticle appear, dash. They're special because before they attack, they will puff up, and if you hit them while they're puffed up, you'll pop them and kill them in one hit. Always lovely. The large animal slime will jump high up into the air before it puffs up, and it'll spit little wind balls at you while it's puffed up. The electro slimes, the large, as you see, come in two colors. If you have both colors in play, then the area between them will periodically be shocked with an arc of lightning. That's about it for what's different about large electro slimes. Dendro slimes hide in the dirt. You really can't even hit them unless you have pyro damage to start burning them with, or you have really, really quick reflexes and get them to sneak up on you and hit them as they're attacking you. Ew, it's saying my internet quality is bad. Well, assuming it's still going, I'm gonna keep going. Large dendro slimes are the same as little dendro slimes, except more health, and they will spit out more baby little dendro slimes. Lovely. Now we get to the two that actually, well, the one that actually bothers me. I'm not too worried about these, but these ones will freeze me a lot because you only found them in shallow water. You see that helmet they've got? You gotta break that off before you can damage them. You can break it with Electro Cryo or Electro Cryo Geo, the overload reaction, which you can't trigger on them directly, but on nearby enemies, or burning grass, or a Claymore. Now, for the Geo boy, breaking his helmet off, you can only do that with the overload mechanic or with a Claymore. But the Geo boy is not always affected with Geo, so you can actually get him on fire and use him himself for the overload. Now, these are bosses, so I'm not going over them today. These two, the Pyro and Cryo, I'm not so keen on fighting. Anyway, but here's this creature's called an Eye of the Storm. There are maybe like 8 in the whole game, aside from the ones that will appear as a commission later on. But they're immune to anemo damage, obviously, because they're made of wind. But they fly around, and you will do a variety of attacks. I don't even have any still alive in my game to show you when I get to the point where I'm fighting these enemies. But they'll fly around, and you basically use an archer or a catalyst user to shoot them down, so you can actually use a melee person to finish them off, or you just do all your fighting of them with the archer or the catalyst user. Personally, I like taking Lisa to these guys. Lisa, and someone that can throw hydro or pyro at them. So that's it for the elemental life forms. Now we're into all the varieties of Hilichurl. Don't worry, I won't explain too much for these guys because, well, Hilichurl have club, occasionally throws rock. You dodge rock, you avoid club, you smack in face, he die. Oh wait, that one's an unarmed Hilichurl. He just has bare fists and rock. This one have club, have rock. This one have flaming club. Fun fact, if you put out his flaming club, he will stop to reignite it before trying to attack you. Also, you can use the flaming club he's got for some overload reactions to make him explode. Is fun. Wooden shield Hilichurl, I love how the picture has his shield already on fire. Shielded Hilichurls will come in wood, ice, or stone. And they can block all incoming damage from the front. So either you're fighting them 2-player and one person's hitting them from the back, or you just bring fire, light that shield up, and burn it away. For the ice shield, it gets a little more frustrating because the shield won't catch fire, but you need to hit it with repeated fire, lightning, or greatsword attacks. Or, of course, that magnificent overload mechanic that I'm always talking about because it's overpowered as crap, and I love it. This guy is just claymores with the overload. You can't do ice or lightning. But, unlike the ice shield, it won't regenerate. Shooters gotta have that crossbow. They're just archers. They'll shoot at you from a distance, and you have to close that distance and kill them unless you yourself are an archer and get into a straight-up archery competition with them. They're not as good at it as they think. And the archers come in normal, pyro, electro, and cryo, and they'll shoot an arrow of their corresponding element. Unless, of course, they're the basic archer, and then they don't have elemental art. The grenadiers dig up slimes that they use as grenades to throw at you. Or bombardier, grenadier. And yeah, they come in pyro, electro, and cryo. They throw slimes of their corresponding element at you, and I think I need to go save our closet from some kittens. Or not. There's one of you. Where's your sister at? Go find Suki. If you notice any fluff balls, one's a gray tiger stripe, the other one is just black, long hair. Oh, she's coming over here. I'll show you. This is Kirsty's kitten, Dusky. She doesn't show up well on camera because she's a black cat, and black cats are basically amorphous balls of black fur. Her sister Suki is out in the hallway right now. But Dusky is a little cuddler, and Suki is just on crack. Anyway. Oh, I've killed a lot of the Pyro Grenadiers. Anyway, so they'll throw a slime of the corresponding element at you, which of course does that elemental damage. The unusual Hilichurl is not quite what I'd call a common enemy, but I'll roll him in here just because he's got the basicness of a common enemy. See that trunk? He'll grab things out of that trunk to throw at you. He'll also whack you in the face with his bare fists. He also is one of the only kinds of Hilichurls that gets a big health bar across the top of your screen when you encounter one. I've only encountered 19. There's an achievement for killing 20. I need to find one more. They're not really that hard to fight. Their health bar is not as big as it looks. But with an event that made them more common, they came with friends. The friends usually including Mitochurls and occasionally Lawachurls. Which, we're about to get into the Mitochurls, which are basically all the same as the Hilichurls we already talked about. We've got the wooden shield, light the shield on fire, burn it away, he becomes vulnerable. These guys will do the shielded ones will do charging attacks though, which gets very annoying because they don't sit still well enough for characters that use turret-based special abilities, like Zhanling. Zhanling is one of my favorite characters, and she's a character that you do get as a freebie eventually. You have to make it through the 3rd floor of the Spiral Abyss to get the freebie Zhanling. Anyway, but yeah, burn shield, it's gone good. Stone shield, claymore, overload the shield away. Also bombs. I forgot to mention this with the small shields, but bombs. If there are bomb barrels nearby, one of those will take out one of these big guys' shields, no problem. Ice shield, lightning fire, overload, or claymore, then beef him in the face. Avoid the dash attack. He'll occasionally also backhand you with his shield. That's just how they fight. That's how all the shielded ones fight, by the way. The axe. We got blazing axe and crackling axe. They have a big axe. At some point in the fight, if you don't kill them way too fast, they will infuse their axe with either pyro or electro, depending on what kind of axe Mighty they are. Good job. We've made it through all the basic forms of Hilly Churl. Now the ones that could be technically considered bosses. The Lava Churls. I am not a fan of these guys. I've gotten pretty well used to the stone hide. They're the first kind you're going to meet in Liyue. And, well, I'll just pop over. They all do attacks matching their element, of course. And they start the fight. First thing they do is they put on a shield, or they put on, like, armor of their element. And you need to use great swords, elemental reactions that will affect their element, or overload to knock out that armor. It takes a lot to knock out that armor. Also Zhongli. Zhongli, I forgot to mention this with the shields. I don't have a Zhongli. Kiersey does. Zhongli's R2 ability, if you hold it, will eat the shield off of an enemy to make his shield that he gives you stronger. So, Geo Shield. It does hits involving rocks. Does hits involving shockwaves. They all do hits involving shockwaves. I don't like that. Frost Arm. His shield's a little bit more obnoxious because, like every other frost shield, it will start to regenerate if you don't break it fast enough. And Thunderhelm. I don't even know where to find any Frost Arm. I think I killed them all. I think they're like the Eyes of the Storm, enemies that have a limited collection in the game. And then there's the Thunderhelm. One of his attacks will actually make small pillars of electro pop up, and you almost always find these guys in shallow water, so they can electro charge you for a lot of dot damage. Dot. So your best bet for any of these, if you don't have Zhongli, in my opinion, is Zhanling and Lisa. Because if you can keep setting them on fire and triggering overloads, you won't even need Lisa for the Thunderhelm. Although with the Thunderhelm, Ice actually works better than Overload does for knocking his shield out. Ice is the best for all electro shields. We'll get back into that when we get to the Fatui later. Now back to enemies that actually are pretty basic. The Samichurls. There are 6 different types, each one corresponding to a different element, covering every element currently available in game except for Pyro and also Dendro, which is not currently available to players in game. These are Hilly Churls that found magic sticks. They each conjure something that could be called a totem, and they each have an attack spell to affect all you and any friends of yours that are within that range with Hydro, so that be affected with elemental reactions easier. These guys are usually encountered with Cryo and or Electro Hilly Churl archers. Their attack makes this water spout appear under your feet. There is a brief telegraph before so you can dodge it. For him, what could be called his totem is a vacuum space that will suck you into the middle. 2 dashes will take you out of that, but at the basic stamina bar, that'll take up a lot of your stamina, so you might, in some cases, be better off just standing still and fighting any enemies that come close to you until the vortex is gone. Is a kitten getting in trouble again? It's dusky again. Well, I can show you Suki now. Say hi, Suki. She's not as cuddly as her sister. This guy's attack, on the other hand, is tornadoes. He will conjure 3 small tornadoes that he'll just throw at you. It's not very accurate, but it is oddly powerful, so you probably don't want to get touched by it. Electro are the new ones, which is probably why you see that I've got hundreds of the rest of them and only 30 of this one. This one's totem will just spit out pulses of electro damage. It's a very short range pulse. I don't think I've even noticed it. And his attack will throw balls of lightning at you. Because of course it will. Dendro, his totem attack is just dotting you with... Oh no, his totem would probably be more likely his thorns. He'll conjure up 3 batches of thorns that do an utterly insane amount of damage, and Suki's playing with my camera on screen. Surprisingly, she finds my face so entertaining over there, but over here is boring. And his attack, on the other hand, is the one that doesn't do damage in his case, where he'll dot you with Dendro effect, making it so that other hilichurls nearby can light you on fire, and you will burn for a lot of dot damage. The Cryo Samachurl, also fairly new. It was introduced with the Dragonspine update, and no one's really been to Dragonspine since they cleared all the content there, as evidenced by the fact that I've only killed 70 of these guys, whereas hundreds of all the rest of them. His totem is just like the Geototem, actually. They make pillars underneath their fellows and themselves, so their archers and them are out of range of your melee attacks. You can shoot them off the pillars, you can break the pillars with a claymore or electro, pyro, or overload. And yeah, that's really it for Cryo Samachurls. And for Geo, you can break the pillars and with overload or... Suki, you're being distracting. With overload or a claymore. As for their attacks, they both have the same attack. A spike that'll come out of the ground between your groin. They want to spike your grundle. This one with an ice spike, this one with a rock spike. Alright, next is the Abyss Mages. These guys get really frustrating for new players. Reason being, the bubble you see around each and every one of them. The Abyss Heralds are not common enemies. I haven't even encountered the Electro one because I missed the event that spawned it, and they're not encounterable in the open world. Anyway, Abyss Mages start the fight every time. They don't even have to conjure their shield. They just start the fight shielded, and you have to use elemental reactions, counter their element, to knock out that shield. You cannot use great swords or any sort of physical damage to knock out the shield. So, for a Pyro Abyss Mage, odds are what you're really going to want is a Hydro character. You can use Electro or Cryo to knock out that shield, but Hydro does the best job. And once their shield's down, they will fall prone to the ground, not even fight back, until they want to try to get their shield back. And reconjuring their shield, they each have a special attack. The Pyro one will make spouts of flame come up at random everywhere. And then as far as attacks when he's in his bubble, he'll throw a stream of flame at you, easily dodged, or his special attack is that he'll make 3 dragon heads appear in a triangle, and that'll all spit fire toward the center. Getting out of that triangle dodges that attack. Honestly, these guys are the least threatening of all the Abyss Mages. In second place for least threatening, our Hydro Abyss Mage friends. His normal attack throws just a splash of water at you. His special attack throws a bubble at you that will trap you if it hits you, but you can shoot the bubble if you're using an archer, and it'll pop the bubble. His shield regeneration attack. Oh, I don't remember his shield regeneration. I don't know if I've let a Hydro Abyss Mage get his shield back. So if anyone remembers that shield regeneration attack for the Hydro Abyss Mage, drop it in the comments, please. Assuming anybody watches this. The Electro Abyss Mages are new. Their normal attack throws a ball of lightning at you. Their shield regeneration attack throws balls of lightning everywhere. And their special attack creates a shock wave in close range around them of electro damage that does actually a sizable amount of damage. Luckily for me, I'm never in it because I'm almost always using ranged characters because that's just how I play. I forgot to mention, for Hydro, you probably want Cryo or Electro. Pyro will take the shield down. I mean, Animo and Geo will take down all Abyss Mage shields, but they're about the slowest ways to do it. But Probably Cryo or Electro for getting these shields down. Pyro or Cryo for these definitely Cryo for these shields, but Pyro does a decent job with the Electro shield. Hydro doesn't really do much of anything to it. You might actually be better off with Geo or Anima over Hydro. Now the Cryo Abyss Mage, definitely Pyro. Pyro is the fastest way to knock this shield out. His normal attack throws an icicle at you. His special attack drops icicles from above your head in a group of 3. Well, one at a time, but it drops 3 before the special attack is over. The shield regeneration attack makes icicles spin around him. These do a surprisingly large amount of damage for how slowly spinning they are. And I remembered the Hydro's regen attack is bubbles. It makes a lot of bubbles around it constantly. Kind of like the Pyro Abyss Mage's bouts of flame. Now to my least favorite group of enemies in the game, the Fatui. Each Fatui skirmisher is unique and annoying. Well, maybe not these ones. These ones are cute. The Sissy mages are just adorable. Anyway, the Pyro Slinger Bracer. I just call them Pyro Gunners because it's easier to remember. He's got a gun. Fires fire bullets. Sounds easy enough. Until you factor in the one thing all skirmishers except for the Sissy mages have in common, of course, an elemental infuse ability. When the Pyro Gunner infuses himself with Pyro, when all of them do their infusement, they become absurdly resistant to damage. But also, when he infuses himself with Pyro, he starts firing his bullets 3 at a time, starts mocking you a lot more, and you basically have to spend about a half hour fighting him unless you have Hydro in your party. Hitting him with these skirmisher shields, or infusements, they'll only go down to a specific element. Or at least they'll only go down at a reliable pace to a specific element. They'll go down little by little to great swords and to any other element that reacts with their element. But if you actually want to get that shield down fast enough to deal damage to them normally again, you want to use the specific element. Then we got the Hydro Gunner Legionnaire. These guys are healers. They'll shoot, instead of shooting you, well, they'll shoot you too for damage, but instead of shooting you, most of the time, they'll shoot their allies to heal them. So you want to kill them first. Their shield goes down fastest to Electro. But I really don't like them, so I try to kill them before their shields go up in the first place. Anno Boxers don't really do the whole elemental infusement thing, so I'm sorry, I lied. Instead, they'll put up a wind shield in front of them that if someone is dumb enough to hit that wind shield, or just distracted enough, because there's all kinds of chaos going around with these skirmishers a lot of times, because they show up in groups of 3 to 5, or 2 to 5. If someone hits that Animo shield, then he'll do a vortex to pull you in and punch you like halfway across the continent. Okay, that's a severe exaggeration, but it feels like it because he'll do enough damage to make you wish that you had not been in that vortex. But that's all special about these guys. They don't put up an infusement. They're not resistant to damage any more than normal at any point. But they're kind of important to kill because they will take advantage of all the chaos that you're already in. The Electro Hammers were my original least favorite Fatui, because I didn't have good Cryo characters at first. Kaya, a lot of people like Kaya, and for all I know, he might be a good Cryo character if used properly, but until I started getting lucky with pulls and got Diona and Ganyu and Chi-Chi, I really did not have any Cryo characters that I liked using that could reliably take down his shield, and make no mistake, Cryo is what takes down his shield the best. You're going to want preferably Ganyu or Chongyun to knock this guy down if he gets his shield up. And his attacks are all based around that big hammer of his. When he has an infusement up, his attacks also do a shockwave that, well, massive shockwave. But that's it. He just hits you with a hammer, and he'll dash at you from miles away. The Cryo Gunner is the one that actually does the most damage, believe it or not, with the most boring attack. He uses that ice gun like a flamethrower, except it's an icy mist. He'll just spew it around in a wide arc that's practically undodgeable. I think it actually is literally undodgeable. I've never been able to dodge it. And his shield goes down best to pyro damage, surprising absolutely no one. When his shield is up, his behavior doesn't really change. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about the Hydro Gunner that he hasn't come with this guy is they both have giant jump and slam attacks like the large slimes do, where they'll leap high into the air and come crashing down upon whatever is left of you. Now, the Geo Chanters, I can pretty well ignore. Or at least I, with how I build my team, can pretty well ignore. He might be a bother to some people. He conjures barriers that prevent you from shooting long-range arrows unless you're inside the barrier, which the barriers are large enough that I'm usually inside the barriers. His infusement, of course, is just like the Lawachurl shield, where he just takes very little damage, and it's a Geo shield that can be taken down by overloads, claymores, or, of course, Zhongli saying, "Om nom nom, this is mine now." Is there a kitten behind me? There's a Dusky behind me. I can't tilt my camera, but you might see your ear right over here. Okay, anyway. The ones that don't do infusements at all. All four of these do not bother with that whole elemental infusement mechanic. So you can fight them like any other enemy. You just be aware of their attacks and avoid them killing you while you're at it. This guy likes to go invisible, and he'll sneak around. If you have him affected by some element, when he goes invisible, you can see him the entire time, and he's just being a fool. But in any case, he goes invisible, wanders around. Your auto-targeting will not lock onto him when he's invisible, even if you do the trick of having him affected by an element so you can see his outline. But he does a lot of dash attacks out of his invisible state. And when he's fighting you and just before he goes into that invisible state, he'll throw a trio of blades that'll spin around him. Supposedly to try and keep you from actually getting close to hit him. He also at some point will use fire with his blades, but I think that's with his dash attacks. Don't quote me on that. I don't know when he does and doesn't use fire. It seems pretty random to me. I think it's with his dash attacks, maybe both dash attacks and the spinning blades, but that's all he's got. As he's hard to stagger and he likes to schneck. The Sistine Mages, they're adorable. They're a little frustrating while you're getting used to them, but they're adorable. They summon those little bat things called Sistines that fight alongside them. The Sistines will throw little elemental bubbles of their element at you, and there are some coordinated attacks that the mage will do with the Sistines. In the case of the Electro-Sistine Mage, she'll summon all three to her shoulders, and they'll fire a massive barrage of those little lightning bolts at you. That's really all there is to the Electro-Sistine Mage. The Cryo one's got a few more tricks up her sleeve, because she will also conjure a shield around herself that you can knock out with pyro reactions or overloads, but she'll instantly regenerate it as long as she still has her Sistines. As for her Sistine coordinated attack, she'll send all of her Sistines to your location and create a boom of cryo damage at you. Okay, I lied. She only has one more attack than the Electro one, but she feels like she's different because of that shield. The Mirror Maiden is new, and I don't have a full grasp on all of her attacks. I know one of them, she'll make a cage beneath your feet to lock you in place. I know one of them, she'll make 3 large pools of water on the ground that'll do water spouts for damage. And I've seen her conjure a bunch of mirrors in the area, and I don't know what those mirrors actually did. I also know that she'll affect you with a status that's marked by four like icicles in a diamond shape on your body, and that somehow empowers her. Okay, our next target are the mechanic. Don't worry, we're a lot closer to done than we think we are. Our next batch are the automatons, or mechanical monsters. The Rune Guard is basically rock'em sock'em robots. I'll fight one of them at the end of all this explaining, just so we get out of all this boring stuff. But they'll basically just try to punch you with those big meaty fists of theirs. They've also got a spinning attack. They'll spin around and around to bat you while walking towards you. Actually, I think I fought one of these last video. I don't know. I'll fight one of this video in case I didn't. But that's one of their special attacks. They only got 3. Another special attack they've got is they'll swing 2 punches and then do a leap and slam attack. And then their third special attack, which is actually the one I've seen them use the most, is where they will turn their butts around and fire missiles at you. Not very friendly. Those missiles are the hardest thing to dodge among their repertoire. Unless you're fighting them in close quarters, then that spinning attack will wreck you big time. Rune Hunters attack primarily with that blade on their arm, or both blades with the other arm. It'll do all kinds of swipe combinations with those blades, and a spin attack with those blades, as well as a lunge attack with those blades. The point to watch for, or at least for me, who always has an archer in my party, the point to watch for is when his eye starts glowing, his arms come off, and he flies up high in the air. Because then he's going to shoot a missile attack at you, where a whole bunch of bombs will just litter the area. If you shoot his eyeball during this phase, he will be dropped on the ground and rendered harmless. By the way, Rune Guard, eyeball is vulnerable at all times, but you have to hit it 3 times. Unless you can hit it twice in quick succession, then you'll have to hit it 2 times, and he'll be sitting inert and helpless. The Rune Grader is more complicated. A little bit frustrating. Because he's got power cores not just in his eyeball, but also in his ankles. And they're only vulnerable when he's using attacks related to that body part. He's got 2 attacks for each body part. His eyeball attacks, one of them is a laser beam that he'll just follow you around with. Kind of hard to aim an arrow when you're busy getting shot at with a laser. But that is the one that takes long enough or you can line up a decent shot. The other eyeball attack, he'll fire bombs. Or they're like bombs. They detonate multiple times. They're multi-detonating bombs. And you want to avoid them. His feet attacks, one of them is just a dash at you, and his feet cores will be vulnerable for like less than a full second before he does his dash. And his other one is the spin attack that I described with the Rune Guard, where he will spin and slowly walk around towards you. Now, hitting either of these cores twice will disable them. The ankle cores are treated as one object, even though there's 2 of them. You hit you hit the eye cores twice, he basically starts wandering around like a lost chicken and will only use his feet-based attacks. You hit his feet cores twice, he will sit down and will only use his eyeball-based attacks. If you can knock out both cores at the same time, then he's just as vulnerable as the Rune Guard or Rune Hunter when they're knocked down. Oh, the newbies. I almost don't feel qualified to explain the newbies. And this one's a boss, so I'm not explaining him in a common enemies video. So this guy is basically just a floating cannon. And all his attacks reflect this. He basically all he does is shoot at you, and hit it, and at some point the core in the center there will light up. And if you happen to hit him, you don't even need an archer for this, but if you happen to hit him while his core's lit up, there's a pretty decent chance you'll knock that core out and he'll fall to the ground helpless. Because that's how all the rune mechanic or rune automatons work. The snaky boy, I don't know what attack makes his core vulnerable, but I really don't know what his attacks do in the first place. You always encounter these guys in groups with others of their type, and so it's always a chaotic event to try and keep track of what's going on. So the destroyers here, I think all their attacks are small AoEs based around their base because they don't move much. Yeah. One of these guys has a hail of missiles attack that will just bombard an area, but I don't know which one. The Rune Defender's a little crabby who will make a shield in front of his face. He actually doesn't really have much of a point when he is vulnerable, unless you run behind him when he makes his shield. He also does a leaping slam attack. That's about what I know of these guys. They'll also swipe at you with their forearms, but that's it. The scouts or octoboys. Okay, there's only 8 tentacles on these guys. I mean, only 4 tentacles on these guys. These guys will lean themselves forward and headbutt you. And I think they also have a cannon attack. And they also will spin their tentacles to hit you. They really don't hit hard enough for me to notice. Or at least not at the level I'm at. At the level my characters are at, I should say. Don't worry, we're down to the last 2 categories. In fact, I'm going to skip the humanoid category because the mystical beast category has the fewest number of basic enemies. We've got the Whopper Flowers, which each, of course, come with an element. The Pyro Whopper Flower will lob fireballs at you. The Electro Whopper Flower will throw lightning bolts at you. The Cryo Whopper Flower will shoot icicles at you. They also have a melee attack where they spin their leaves around to hit you. They also charge up. The charged attack for the Pyro Whopper Flower... Well, before I get to the charge attacks, all the charge attacks can be avoided by hitting them with enough elemental reactions while they're trying to charge. Now, the charge attack for the Pyro Whopper Flower will lob a bunch of homing fireballs at you, so you just really can't avoid the damage. The Electro's charged attack, I believe, I don't think I've let one live long enough, but I believe fires tracking lightning bolts like the fireballs that will just follow you until they hit you, or you lure them to hit some part of the scenery. The Cryo Whopper Flowers, the Hydra reactions aren't all that useful except with the Pyro Whopper Flower. Now, the other common-ish enemies down here are the Geovishap Hatchlings and the Geoviships. Not the Primo Bishop. He's a boss. The Hatchlings will usually be found rolling around like they don't know what to do and they're on some kind of drugs. They have a handful of attacks. One is a swipe, an X/swipe with their claws. That will deal a pretty severe amount of damage if they hit you with it, but it's slow enough that it's easy to dodge. A spin attack that hits for small damage but hits a lot of times if you stay too close to them. And a rolling attack where they will just roll straight into you at full speed like they think they're Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, one thing they'll do a lot during the fight that's not an attack is they'll burrow into the ground. Every time they do that, they'll pop up somewhere else shortly after, but they'll create some geocrystals to give you a shield. If you have that shield on, when they do their rolling attack, they'll fall onto their back and be completely helpless for a short period of time. That covers the hatchlings. These guys like to do jumping slam attacks. They'll do a series of 3 of them before falling on their back, whether you've got a shield to block them or not. They also do the same rolling attack as their little guys, but they don't give you the shield for that. You have to have your own shield, so hopefully you have Noelle. She's a freebie character, pretty much, because the game gives you a handful of quaint fates early on, and there's a newbie draw to get a free Noelle. I recommend it highly. And in addition to those two attacks, they still have using their claws, but they'll use them more like punches. And they come with, and about halfway through the fight, they'll get an elemental infusement of their own. This elemental infusement does not go away, and it turns all their attacks into attacks of that elemental type, which makes Noelle and other Geo users all the better for them, because anytime you hit them while they're infused with their element with a Geo attack, you'll make a crystal for a shield specifically against that kind of attack. The more you know. And now, other than the three bosses in this category, we just have the Cystines. Hydro, we don't have an Abyss Mage. We don't have a mage for, which is kind of unfortunate because they're the cutest kind of Cystine. They're kind of harmless, which is probably why we don't have a Hydro Cystine Mage. They're just these little bat or moth-like creatures that spit elemental attacks of their element at you. And yes, they can be encountered without a Cystine Mage to guide them. The Cystine Mage just uses that lantern full of Whopper Flower nectar to lure Cystines and basically mind control them. These are all bosses, and I hope to never see this one again. Seriously. Now, back up to the humans. Treasure hoarders are among Kiersey's favorite kind of enemy. Mine too, almost. They are as basic as it gets. You can fight them with anything you want. You just need to be mindful of their attacks. So, mentioning that, we've got the basic treasure hoarder just punches and throws knives. He's kind of dumb. These potioneer guys will throw potions of their element that will leave a damage space on the ground of that element. You'll usually encounter them in combinations of 2 or 3, so they can play off each other's elements for elemental reactions to make your life a little bit more painful if you don't avoid the potions. The handyman is just big and biffy. That's all he's got going for him. He's big, he's huge, you can't really knock him over with except for overload, or if you get a real good combo of damage going. And he'll run at you, he'll punch you, he won't really be much of a threat otherwise. Marksman's an archer, avoid the arrows, punch him in the face, slice his face open. Gravedigger is like the handyman, except for he'll also shovel dirt in your face, which will actually obscure your screen. The Seaman, just like the Handyman, except he also has an attack where he will charge at you, constantly swinging that ore around, and that ore will knock you on your butt a lot. Pugilist is Punch Guy. He also comes in Crusher form, which is Mace Guy. They're basically just repeats of Handyman, with different dialogue and slightly different appearance. Now, the Nobushi are new, and I don't like the Kairagi versions of them, but the Nobushi are alright. They're just a little annoying because they have a tendency toward dashing attacks, and as I've mentioned before, I have a tendency toward Jianling, and her special attack, Guoba, is a stationary turret, so dash attacks really mess with my Guoba-ing. Anyway, the Nobushi come in 2 elemental forms, Pyro and Electro, and the non-elemental one. I would think this would be Hydro, but I mean non-elemental. And aside from those dash attacks, they are just as basic as the treasure hoarder handyman. The Kairagi, on the other hand, are an entirely different beast. They've got about as much health as most boss enemies. They only come in the Fiery Might and Dancing Thunder elemental varieties. they oftentimes come as a pair with one of each, and they have the same 3 attacks. They will do a massive slam attack with their element bursting forward in a cone of damage. They'll do a spin attack, which is nigh undodgeable unless you're already a mile away from them. And they'll do a dash attack like the Nobushi do. The part that's most frustrating is just how mobile they are, and the fact that they'll play off each other's elemental abilities to overload you for utterly insane amounts of damage. Oh, did I mention that all 3 of these new samurai type enemies, all 5 of these new samurai type enemies, will also jump back to avoid damage, so they're just so madly mobile that it might just be me that it bothers, because of how much I love Guoba. He's a nice plushy teddy bear that spits flames at people. But yeah, that's it. I know I rattled through a whole lot in a arguably short period of time, based on how much time there is here, based on how much there is here to go through. But that is all the basic enemies in the game that you'll be running into on a regular basis. The Nobushi and the Kairagi you don't have to worry about until you're in Inazuma. The Lawa Turtles you don't have to worry about outside of Inazuma, Dragonspine, and Liyue. And the Eyes of the Storm and mechanical enemies really aren't as common as the rest of them, so I could have skipped them. Well, okay, the mechanicals get a lot more common in Inazuma, but just the new Inazuman ones that I don't know as well. Lynn, fine, you're on the way, I guess. Bonus fun fact that has nothing to do with enemies, unless you count her as an enemy. Occasionally you will encounter world event quests that don't reward much, but reward enough that if you do them, if you do them reliably when you find them, you'll definitely benefit for having done so. In this case, Lynn just wants me to give her 3 apples. I've got a lot of apples because I never used them, so sure, she can have 3 of my apples. In Mondstadt region, you'll encounter 2 different people, Lynn and Leanne, who need some kind of ingredient that they are having trouble finding. You'll encounter a researcher whose name I keep forgetting, who wants you to take her notes to a fellow researcher that's by the tree at Windrise. You'll be plenty familiar with that location if you do that world event often enough. You'll encounter 2 different travelers, Pallid and I forgot the name of the other guy, that get themselves surrounded by weak monsters, usually slimes or basic hilly churls. So, sorry to make that look easy, but that's how you do the Rune Guard.
Don't blink.
You can also, once you get more experience with the game, melee a Rune Guard as long as you know how to dodge all their attacks. Ow, which I don't. I know how, but I'm not as experienced at doing so as I like to think I am. Oh dear, he's gonna slam. Ready for the slam! Ready for the face jam? Okay. I missed the second shot. Oh well. Missiles? Why yes, I love some missiles. The trick to dodging the missiles is to dash away at first and then dash to the side, because the missiles will home in on your location immediately following a dash. Oh, you're going to show us all 3 of your special attacks this fight. Lovely. The only other world event you'll see in Mondstadt is... oh, there are more. You'll see Big Pudgy Problem.
Speed of light.
Which is just killing a bunch of... which is killing a bunch of slimes nearby. You'll see... I forget the name of it, but there's one where there's 4 hilly churls that have a pig cornered. I think it's like captured prey or something. And you just gotta kill the hilly churls. You can kill a pig if you want to for some extra meat. And then there's one where there's hilly churls with training equipment that you just gotta break the hilly churls training equipment. All these little side things are easy to do, reward practically nothing on their own, but they add up over time if you do enough of them. So, that is it for the basic enemies and apparently basic world events for Dummies section of my Genshin exploration. Maybe next time we'll cover ley lines or other or more complicated topics like boss enemies. I know I ran over the Pyro Registine on the first video, and I would do a boss this video, but we're already at 50 minutes. I've kept you guys long enough, assuming anyone watches this to the end. So, bye-bye, everybody.